Hello and a warm welcome to Federal Special Program Capital Beat. Jammu and Kashmir Chief Minister Omar Abdullah is all set to launch the Har Ghar signature campaign to press the demand for the early restoration of statehood to J&K and present it before the Supreme Court. Now, Omar said that the recent comments made by the Supreme Court about the Pahalgam attack during the statehood hearing were unfortunate, as the people of Jammu and Kashmir were being punished for a crime in which they had no role. It's important to mention that investigations by security agencies have already revealed that the attack was a foreign plot carried out entirely by foreign terrorists. Now, Supreme Court's comments have not only agitated the petitioners, but also the political circles in Jammu and Kashmir, where frustration is growing over what many look like a deliberate delay in restoring the rights of the people. The Solicitor General, representing the Union government, requested 8 weeks to reflect and seek a response from the central government on the matter, to which the Supreme Court agreed. So now, over these next 8 weeks, Omar Abdullah has said that, and I'm going to quote what exactly he has said, that from today, we will use these 8 weeks to go door to door in all 90 assembly segments for a signature campaign on the restoration of statehood. If people are not ready to sign the document, I will accept the defeat. And then he goes on to say that we will have to take these voices from our offices to the doors where these decisions are taken. Now, this signature campaign, of course, restoration of the statehood is a significant issue which the people of the state have been waiting for. But how does one look at this signature campaign? Is it a political theatrics, or is it really having substance in what Omar Abdullah says, that over the next 8 weeks, he will go door to door, get the signatures? Now, what will happen if he gets all the signatures, or what happens if he doesn't get the signatures? So joining me this evening is Professor Radha Kumar, who's been the former interlocutor to the Jammu and Kashmir. She's a columnist, author, and political analyst. Thank you so much, Radha, for joining. It's wonderful to have you on the program on the Federal. And my first question to you is, this particular move by Omar Abdullah, where he is planning to go door to door over the next 8 weeks to get signatures of the people, what is this kind of a step? How would you really describe this?
I have to say, I think it's really welcome. I think it's a wonderful step. I think it's one form of asserting democratic rights. And I hope it will have a large impact, both on the union administration and if, as he says, his party or his government is going to approach the Supreme Court, then I hope and I expect that it should have an impact there too. As you know, we have been petitioners in the Supreme Court on the 370 issue in 2019, and we are planning to file again ourselves as well. Even though, of course, we qualify as the Tom, Dick, and Harry that Sajjad Loan is so critical of.
No, but Supreme Court, I mean, Justice Gawai said that, one has to factor in what happened in Pahalgam. Now, can Pahalgam become the reason to delay the issue of statehood, delay the restoration of statehood in Kashmir?
No, I don't see how. Look, first of all, security and indeed all administration is under the Lieutenant Governor. He himself has accepted responsibility for the terrorist attack in Pahalgam, and there's no doubt that there's been a serious security lapse there. Now, the Home Ministry also is culpable, clearly. It is not the Lieutenant Governor alone who oversees security. The Home Minister has taken a very direct interest in security, and he conducted 2 review meetings before the Pahalgam attack, and there seems to have been intelligence that something was planned in advance. So the failure is very clear. And it's also very clear that the elected administration has nothing to do with it. They have absolutely no responsibility for this failure. They were not even consulted. They were not even invited to the security reviews conducted by the Home Minister and the Lieutenant Governor. So, how you can connect these two, I do not understand at all. We must also bear in mind that even when the state did have statehood, Jammu and Kashmir was a state before August 9, 2019, before the Reorganization Act. If you look at the situation before that, security was still in the hands of the union administration. Jammu and Kashmir was under the Disturbed Areas Act. There was much discussion of whether to roll that back or not, but in fact, it was never rolled back. So, security, quite honestly, has long been in the hands of the union administration. Now, the second point, if you look at the period, well, Jammu and Kashmir had uninterrupted statehood uh, until 2019. But if you look at that situation, you cannot actually argue that the security threats or attacks were much greater then than they are today under a union territory administration. In fact, this period has seen two major attacks. Well, let us say Pahalgam being the most major, just prior to the August 2019 announcements, you had Pulwama, which was again a terrible security lapse and the failure of the union administration to act on actually very clear intelligence at that point. At that point, the intelligence was almost, it was so specific that that attack could have really easily been prevented had the CRPF director's request for airlifts been accepted. So, anyway, that aside, the fact is that if you look at, say, Omar Abdullah's earlier term, up until 2009 to 2013, you see that uh, casualties were falling, the rate of casualties was falling year on year on year. And by 2013, it was the lowest ever. And this is when Jammu and Kashmir was a state. And when security was still in the hands of the union administration. But at that time, the union administration and the state administration worked closely together. You had earlier under Mufti, which was a real turning point, you had a unified command in which the army, the state administration, and the union home ministry were all present and working together. So were the intelligence agencies. Now you have had a situation under this union territory of a total bypassing of any elected representatives. And that has resulted in a situation where you have really poor intelligence because you are no longer engaging democratically with the people of Jammu and Kashmir.
Right. No, but will you then say that the comments made by Omar Abdullah while he was addressing the people on the Independence Day at the Bakshi Stadium, and I'm going to quote what exactly he said that there were unfortunate comments in the Supreme Court that the Pahalgam attack should be considered when statehood is decided. Then he said that will the killers of Pahalgam and their masters in the neighboring country decide whether we will be a state? Then he says every time we are close to statehood, they will do something to sabotage it. Is this of is this fair? Why are we being punished for the crime we have no role in? So do you think that this take which has been taken by Omar Abdullah actually expresses the right sentiment of the people of Kashmir?
Yes, I do. I mean, not only is it a question of does it express the sentiments of the people of Kashmir, obviously, that question would be best addressed by representatives of the people of Jammu and Kashmir, which I am not. Uh, uh, but much more than that, the points are objectively absolutely correct. As I said, security is in the hands of the union administration and the lieutenant governor's administration, not in the hands of the elected administration, and therefore statehood has nothing to do with what happened in Pahalgam. Indeed, even when Jammu and Kashmir was a state, security still remained in the hands of the union administration. Uh, and therefore, statehood has no bearing on security. They are quite separate. You know, you could have argued, oh, the state administration is very incompetent or messes up on security, but they are not in charge. They have never been in charge.
No, but
So
rather,
you
do you
can't
feel
make
that
that
there is
argument.
no? But do you feel that there is a deliberate attempt to sabotage the restoration of the statehood of Jammu and Kashmir?
Look, let's put it this way. As far as the cross-border armed groups are concerned, which are, given sanctuary, aid of all sorts, training, etc., by the Pakistani military, um, for them, anything that will give keep Kashmir in a patently obvious state of suppression or repression is good for them. It's good for them both in the sense that they believe that they can then make some harvest out of the alienation in Jammu and Kashmir. It's good for them because they can sell it in Pakistan and get more aid and support. It's good for them because they can make an international case of India as a repressive state as far as Jammu and Kashmir is concerned. So there's no doubt that these types of acts will play into their hands and they will make use of it. You saw for yourself that the resistance front claimed that they were acting because Article 35A, which protected the state residents' rights to property, was removed under the Reorganization Act. Now, that is a very sore point in Jammu and Kashmir. Um, it's Omar Abdullah is also right in that the Kashmiris, the people of Jammu and Kashmir, foiled or rejected that claim of the resistance front. They made that claim. Their goals were obviously quite different goals. They were to foment further Hindu Muslim polarization in our country, which unfortunately many groups in our country are also playing into. Uh, Many groups of every religion in our country are playing into and fomenting further, including groups of the majority religion here,
Right.
or perhaps even most of all, majority religion groups over here. So they wanted to further that. Now, the Kashmiri response was an absolute rejection of that goal of the resistance front and whoever the other actors were in the Pahalgam attack. Um, they came out on the streets to protest. There were candlelit demonstrations. Industrialists called a bandh, traders called a bandh. Congregations in the mosques wore black armbands across the valley. It was an amazing expression of total public rejection of what the resistance front had done and of its aims. That is something that opens the space for peace building. If you don't use that space to do peace building, then you are playing into the hands of groups like the resistance front, and Omar Abdullah is right in
Right.
saying what he has said.
Right. In fact, while he was making his Independence Day address, he also looked very disappointed, and he said that this dual system is uh, is failing Kashmir somewhere because you have a union territory, you have an elected CM, and he says that I feel that my hands have been tied, and I feel like that horse which is allowed to walk but walk with his hands tied. What would you really say to the present system of governance in Kashmir? Is it is it really resulting in a failure, is what Omar is pointing out.
Yeah, I mean, that failure was predestined by the transaction of business rules, which were issued by.
Sorry, he says that I would not want anyone to be the chief minister of a union territory. This system of governance looks good on paper but fails in reality. It's a governance structure designed for failure. This is exactly what he said. Yes.
Yeah, well, it's certainly true. I mean, uh, I have not studied all union territories, but we saw what happened with Delhi, which was a special. It was a hybrid statehood with the lieutenant governor usurping more and more powers, even despite when the Supreme Court ordered that the bureaucracy had to be accountable to the elected administration. The union administration passed an act of amendment in parliament ensuring that that couldn't be done. They actually went against the Supreme Court's order. That will be the same. Now, that same principle has been used in Jammu and Kashmir. Here, the Reorganization Act clearly apportioned many powers to the lieutenant governor, taking them away from any elected administration. Then you had the new transaction of business rules in July 2024, 3 months before the elections were due, in which they said that the lieutenant governor would have all powers over hiring and firing bureaucracy, all powers over the police, even to the extent of all powers over the justice system, the attorney, what is it called, advocate general of the state, of the former state. So what is left? If no one is accountable to the elected administration, how is this supposed to function? They have no authority,
Yesterday,
no capacity.
rather, when you heard Omar Abdullah yesterday, it seemed almost like he was regretting becoming the chief minister, because he said, and I'm going to quote him again, that people will ask, because this is just an extension of what he said when he said that CM said that no one should aspire to become a CM of a union territory. And then he goes on to say that people will ask why you took part in the electoral process of a union territory, but I didn't know it would be so difficult. The situation has come to such a pass that cabinet decisions are stopped and not issued. What will the elected governments do if its hands are tied? And then he goes on to liken the situation of the current administration to tying a horse's front legs and then asking it to run. So these are the things which he said yesterday. What does it go to show? I mean, what is Omar Abdullah really trying to express? He's trying to express his helplessness, or he's trying to express regret that, oh God, why on earth did I take part in that electoral system if I had to see days like these?
So I can't speak for him. I can tell you my interpretation of what he said. I think that he and many others hoped that following the election, statehood would be restored soon, or that at any rate the elected administration would have some powers to actually administer. Um, and that hope was based on the fact that the union administration, from Prime Minister Modi to Home Minister Shah to the Solicitor General in the Supreme Court, had all given repeated assurances from November 2019 on that statehood would be restored soon. Now, soon became at an appropriate time. However, in December 2023, the Supreme Court, the Chief Justice himself said that this must be done at the soonest. Many of us believe that it was a failure on the part of the Supreme Court not to have ruled on the constitutional issues at that time. We don't know if in the current petitions that are before the Supreme Court whether they will rule on the constitutional issues, or we hope they will. But the facts are very simple, that Omar Abdullah and his most of the political leadership in Jammu and Kashmir, all of whom participated in the elections, believed that statehood would be restored soon. Uh, that did not happen. Then Soon after, as you know, soon after taking office, the Abdullah cabinet issued a resolution for statehood. The State Assembly issued another resolution asking also for discussions on special status. Um, Subsequent to that, they have repeatedly asked for return of statehood. Most recently, the Abdullah cabinet forwarded proposals to the Lieutenant Governor's administration, saying, "Let us work out a way in which we can share enough authority that we too can administer." That proposal, the lieutenant governor sat on it for months, as did the president, uh, and then um, and then returned it, saying that this is contrary to the spirit of the Reorganization Act.
Right.
Now there is an ongoing case in the High Court on
Right.
the lieutenant governor nominating MLAs. You know, 5 MLAs are to be nominated, and there's a case going on that because the lieutenant governor and the Union Home Ministry is saying that he doesn't even have to consult the elected administration on this. So
No, but a certain section of the people in Jammu and Kashmir, rather, they are calling this signature campaign as some sort of a theatrics as well. Would you agree that this is some kind of a theatrics, or would it be the right way to say that it's almost like a referendum on the statehood issue? Because if Omar Abdullah is going to go door to door, get each and every household to sign on this statehood issue, and then present it before the Supreme Court, what would you say? Is it almost like equivalent to a referendum on the statehood issue?
well, as I said, I see it as an act of democratic representation and a very welcome one because that has not happened in Jammu and Kashmir, which has been almost all democratic forms of oppression have been of expression have been suppressed. Uh, Now, why Sajad Lone has come out and criticized it, I really don't understand. I'm afraid I think it's a very foolish criticism to
No,
make.
but why do you think he would have opposed this? Why is he opposing this?
He
Because
is saying, he
yeah,
is saying, call an emergency session of the assembly and have a resolution passed by all the elected representatives. Now, that, to my mind, is a sensible. It's a perfectly reasonable proposal to make, and it would be good if the assembly unitedly passed a resolution for statehood. That would be very good. Of course, we don't know how the BJP MLAs would respond. They may very well say, no, not now, appropriate time. We have no idea. Uh, but anyway, on the face of it, that proposal is fine. The criticism I don't understand at all. I think his criticism is silly and it kind of sounds sour.
yes. So towards the end, I mean, this is my last question to you, rather, that how would you then see the things unfolding in J&K post the signature campaign? Supposing if Omar manages to get all the signatures from each and every nook and corner of Kashmir, will that be substantial evidence before the Supreme Court to show that, look, there's so much of support on the restoration issue, and Pahalgam cannot be the reason to deny the statehood?
So I would say, the Supreme Court is a constitutional court. Frankly, they should, when they bring up Pahalgam, they are moving away from the constitutional issues to ground reality issues, which belong more as evidence. The Supreme Court generally does not go into evidence. Now this seems to be a new trend, which therefore we have to take on board, and it's a new trend that started with the previous Chief Justice, well, not the previous, the one before, Mr. Chandrachud, who again talked about ground realities more than constitutional issues. But the constitutional issue here is a very simple one. It goes to Article 1 and Article 3. And the question there is, can you take away the statehood of an existing state, which is a constituent member of the Union? Article 1 is India is a union of states. All those states that are members of the union are constituent members of that union. So how do you get the authority? How does a union administration get the authority to remove the statehood of a constituent member of the union? That is question number one. And as you know, uh, the Supreme Court, when ruling on Article 370, refused to rule on this aspect, saying that we have been told it's going to be restored, therefore we are not ruling on it, which for us was a cop out. But the point is that in a tacit way, that recognizes the strength of the argument that you cannot take away the statehood of an existing state. And you certainly can't demote an entire state to union territories. 1, 2, 5, 10, you can't do it. Now that comes to Article 3. Article 3 deals with the creation of union territories. It says that you can carve an area of a state out to turn into a union territory after consultation with the elected representatives of the state. Uh, Now, Article 3 does not contemplate turning a whole state into union territories. It does not even consider such a matter, let alone permit it. It speaks very specifically of carving out an area of a state, not the whole of the state. So here too, you can, constitutionally speaking, there's a big question mark. Are you going to allow Article 3 to be used in this way to turn an
Absolutely.
entire state into union territories?
Right.
That both of these, Article 1 and 3, and the questions related to them through what has happened to Jammu and Kashmir, these relate to the
Right.
overall nature of Indian federalism and the question of whether can a union administration do this to any state of the union,
Right.
which they may well. I mean, who is to say this model will not then be used or
Absolutely.
referred to deal with other opposition rule states? You're
Absolutely.
setting a very bad precedent. And you
Right.
cannot argue exceptionalism. You know, if you
Absolutely.
start bringing up the exceptionalist argument of security, then look at all the other conflicts you have in the.
Yeah. Absolutely. And they might say that, okay, we've managed it successfully in Kashmir, so let's do it in other states as well. So we'll have to end it here. Thank you so much, Professor Radha Kumar, for joining on the Federal. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.